embark on the Great Canadian Farm Tour, it is important to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of Indigenous peoples. Agriculture in the Classroom Canada recognizes and honors the enduring presence of the diverse Indigenous communities across Canada, including the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. We acknowledge the deep connection that Indigenous peoples have to the land, waters, resources, and all of agriculture. We express our gratitude for their stewardship and custodianship of these lands for generations. Agriculture in the Classroom Canada recognizes that acknowledging the traditional territories we reside and work on is only a small step towards reconciliation. We ask that we all continue to learn more about the Indigenous peoples in these regions, to consider the history and ongoing colonialism on this land, to reflect on how each of us can contribute to reconciliation. Hello, bonjour! Welcome everyone to our next stop on Season 5 of the Great Canadian Farm Tour. Bienvenue à tous à notre prochain arrêt de la saison 5 de la Grande Tournée des Fermes Canadiennes. We are so excited to have everyone join us today from across Canada. Nous sommes ravis que vous soyez tous là aujourd'hui venus de partout au Canada. My name is Mercedes from Agriculture in the Classroom Canada, and I'll be your MC for today. Je m'appelle Mercedes d'Agriculture en Classe Canada, and je serai votre maître de cérémonie aujourd'hui. Before we get started, we want to provide a few reminders. For those who want to follow along in French, please use the Boost Lingo link provided in the chat to access the interpreting services provided for today. We ask that everyone is mindful this is an educational event, so inappropriate conduct happening, such as spamming or improper comments, will not be tolerated. Throughout the tour, we welcome you to post your questions in the chat to get them answered. We'll answer as many questions as possible. The mystery word for your student activity books will appear at the end of the episode, so please stick around. Students, fun learning will be happening that can be written in your student activity books, which will be shared during the brain break. Finally, we would love to know where everyone is joining us from today. Please share your school and or location. Now we'd like to welcome our next tour host of the Great Canadian Farm Tour, which is Tony for Farmers Fresh Mushrooms in British Columbia. Hi, Tony.
Hi, everybody.
Tony, it's so great to have you with us today. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself to get us started.
My name is Tony. I was born and raised here in Canada. I am a first or second generation farmer, you would say. My family's been mushroom farming for about 30 years now. So we have a long history from my uncles, from my mom, my dad, all the way down to me now, I guess, and hopefully my kids in the future.
That's so exciting to hear how long you've been doing it. And now we get to learn a little bit more about mushroom farming with you today as you do a tour of your farm.
Yeah, no, we're very happy to have you guys.
Yeah, we're so excited. So I'm going to hand the controls over to you, Tony, and you'll start the tour around your facility, and then I'll come back and ask questions with you from students across Canada. So get started, Tony.
So we're actually in our brand new facility. It's about a year old. In this facility itself, we have about 12,000 square feet of growing area. So what I mean by that is every single one of these beds, we have about 21 beds. So there's 12,000 of them, or 12,000 square feet of growing. This barn specifically grows white button mushrooms, which is the most common mushroom that is eaten in North America. We also do grow brown mushrooms and portobello mushrooms. And just a little secret, a portobello mushroom is just a large brown mushroom. But don't tell too many people because we can charge a little bit extra for that. The mushrooms you see right here are grown in stages. So the stages that you see, the stage actually we're in right now is stage 2. Stage 1, you get a lot more mushrooms and they tend to be very thickly grown in. And it actually takes the harvesters, someone like him over there, to kind of pick and thin out all the mushrooms. I'll zoom in onto his hands in the second half so we can actually see how they harvest the mushrooms. Mushrooms grow extremely quickly. Every hour they grow about 4%. So, and then that means every 20.
So we're just having some technical difficulties, but hopefully we'll get Tony back. In the meantime, keep putting your questions in the chat, so once he's returned, we can start answering some of the amazing questions we have from students across Canada. We also welcome you to think about how many mushrooms that possibly Tony could be growing in his facility. So hopefully we'll get him back, and we appreciate everybody's patience. And now he's just back in.
Are you
There we
back
go.
now? Okay, I'll try to
Yes.
stand closer to the front of the room so it's closer to the Wi-Fi
There
network.
you go. Keep on going, Tony.
Yeah. I don't know where I left off, but did you guys get to see how fast mushrooms grow?
Just go over that little part again because we lost you right about then.
No worries. These mushrooms, they will grow about 4% every hour, which means every 24 hours, every day, they double in size. That's like an average kindergartner being about 50 pounds, waking up being 100 pounds and twice as big the very next day. So can you imagine the amount of energy that these mushrooms need from the soil and the compost that they bring up? The compost is made of the straw that's been broken down, and that's the sugars that power the mushrooms up. I also talked a little bit about this facility specifically grows white button mushrooms. We also grow brown button mushrooms and portobellas. And it's a little trade secret, but a portobello is just a very large brown mushroom. I can't have you guys tell everybody that because I can actually charge more for a portobello. So please don't let that be known too much. Mushrooms are grown in stages. So this is actually the second stage of a mushroom growing process. The first stage, you'll actually see the beds completely filled with mushrooms because that's when the compost and the straw has the most energy.
Tony, as you're
Yes.
processing thought, I have a question from Addison who wants to know
Sure.
how many types of edible mushrooms are there? I'm not sure if you
Ooh.
know that. That's a probably
Very-
interesting question.
That's
Maybe a
very good
Googleable question.
Yeah. I would have to Google that because there's so many types of mushrooms. I do know within our facility, we grow those 3 types. Plus, we also outsource from all the local farms, shiitake mushrooms, oyster mushrooms, and lion's mane. So those are like the specialty mushrooms that you'll see in restaurants. We just found out that specifically we grow white and brown mushrooms the best. So we try to stick to our lane and do what we do best. But a very good question.
That's a great question, Addison. So please look it up and let us know the answer to that. And we have another question from Amanda who's asking, how tall do the mushrooms get? So I guess probably depending on what you're growing, that may vary.
Yes. So actually, if I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to move the camera and zoom in. 1 second. Can you guys see that?
Yep, it's perfect. Thanks, Tony.
Okay. So we don't actually want the mushrooms to get too tall. And the reason for that is the taller they get, the more energy that the mushroom will use to grow tall versus big. So the mushrooms are grown, you weigh them on size, but you also weigh them on how the circumference of the mushrooms are. So these mushrooms right here would be a large mushrooms, and these ones down here would be a button mushrooms, and you get almost double, triple, quadruple the weight in that one than that one. But height-wise, they're not that much different from each other. They're about an inch, so twice a day's worth of growth away. So very good question, very good question. All our mushrooms are grown in these giant facilities, and this whole room is meant to simulate what a cave would be like. The lights in here are actually just for our harvesters themselves. Mushrooms can grow in complete darkness. They're a fungi, so they don't actually need light to produce energy. What they do is the opposite of trees. They need oxygen and they need water. And then lots of wind too, or a little bit of wind to kind of mix that all together. Because if the more stagnant it is, what ends up happening is the soil gets really swampy. Okay, so like I was saying, this is our second stage of mushrooms. We tend to grow them in 3 different stages. The first break, which means lots and lots of mushrooms, you get about 60% of your crop in that first stage. And this is our second break. We get about 35% of our crop. So you can see how much 35% is. And in our third break, it is anywhere between 5 to 15%, and then like I count an extra 10 because that's sort of like our profit or profit margin, or like the extra mushrooms that we can produce in a room. We don't really count that. We just want to make sure that we cover our costs for initially. Speaking of harvesters too, wondering mushrooms can be other colors than brown and white.
Yeah, I was just going
Yes.
to jump in there. Question from Scarlett. Brown and white, can it be other colors?
Yes, mushrooms can be different colors. So an oyster mushroom can be a blue color. There's pink oyster mushrooms. Lion's mane is like this goldenish color. But white mushroom, different color mushrooms, it kind of means there's something wrong with the mushrooms. So people generally do not want to buy those. We have a little bit of a mushroom that's discolored right here. It's kind of a yellowish color. So that will probably be downgraded later when that is harvested. So yeah, very good questions.
Tony, we lost you for a second. Could you repeat the importance of color and how it could be a deterrent or make people not want to buy it, and then how you downgraded it? So you grade your mushrooms, I would guess.
Yes. Yeah, I'll see if I can go to this scaling room or grading room later as soon as we near the end of this.
Perfect.
There's a mushroom here that is a little bit more yellowish. It's that one right there. When it comes to white mushrooms, color is very important. Everybody likes that pristine white pearl color. If we see that, it generally gets downgraded to like a food service mushroom, which tends to go to like soup makers or sauce makers. And when it gets harvested, the harvesters themselves have multiple boxes right here. Each box is a size and a grade themselves. So when he harvests mushrooms, he actually knows which boxes to put these mushrooms into. All right. All really good questions.
That's a really good question. So it also shows that no matter what, this mushroom's getting used, whether it's eaten for something or put into something else as like sauces or soups. So that was a great question and great answers from Tony.
Yeah.
And then we have one more question, Tony. A grade 4 student is wondering how long it takes for a mushroom to grow to full size. And I guess that varies as well.
Yeah. So it all varies on what size of mushrooms the customers want. Generally, harvesters want to grow as big as possible, but sometimes we require them to pick medium-sized mushrooms or large-sized mushrooms at a jumbo. It takes about 3 days for a mushroom to be full size, in my opinion. But we can also control that with how hot the room is. The hotter the temperature, the faster the mushroom grows. But in essence, the lighter it gets too, because it doesn't have enough time to absorb all that water and food that makes it heavy. So sometimes a big mushroom might be light, while a medium-sized mushroom might be very heavy. And that's something that we as mushroom growers have to kind of determine what direction we want to go in when we're growing and harvesting mushrooms. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the mushrooms themselves. So right now we're in a temperature-controlled room that's about, I think it's about 7 degrees Celsius, if my math is correctly converting from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Side note: all farms in Canada use Fahrenheit because they are the unit of measurement between temperatures are smaller. Therefore, from 59 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit is a smaller increase, so we can actually control the temperature a little bit better than if we go from 1 degrees to 2 degrees Celsius. But an interesting thing about mushrooms is after they're harvested, in general, this harvester within the next couple hours would actually take all his mushrooms and bring it to our cooler. If a mushroom stays above 5 degrees above 4 degrees after harvesting, every hour it stays above that temperature, it will actually lose 1 day of shelf life. And mushrooms tend to only last about 7 days as soon as they're harvested. So within 7 days, it has to be on some store shelf or being served to you at a restaurant, or else the mushroom kind of turns in color and gets degraded. We'll go back to me here. So I'm not staring at the person the whole time.
That's some great fun facts, Tony. I just want you to wrap up your thoughts here, and then we're going to go to a commercial break. So feel free to wrap up your thoughts, and then we'll continue after our commercial break.
Sure, no problem. I just wanted to say, too, that Farmer Fresh or my family wouldn't be where I am right now without the hard work of all these harvesters. I've always made a clear fact that they are kind of the lifebone of our business and and without them, we wouldn't be able to survive. A really cool and interesting fact about a harvester is they will harvest anywhere between 50 to 60 pounds of mushrooms per hour. So their hands are constantly going. So in the next half, I'll actually show you how fast someone's harvesting and how they're actually looking at the mushrooms so they'll know which boxes the mushrooms go in before they actually pick the mushrooms themselves.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing those thoughts around how important it is to have different people with different expertise on the farm to make sure it works and functions together as a unit. So we will now take a brief commercial break to learn a little bit more about the province of British Columbia, and then we'll be back shortly with Tony, who's going to continue with us on a tour of the mushroom farm. So we'll see you all in a minute and a half, I would say. See you in a few. And we're back with Tony. So take it away, Tony, to finish off the last half of our tour.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. I'm just going to go to a harvester and see if we can watch how he... Whoops, wrong camera. There you go. And just see what they're doing. So as you can see here, he's got a box of mediums and he's got a box of large and a box of jumbos back there. And as he's working through the mushrooms right now, he's doing a process called thinning. And thinning is basically seeing where all the smaller, weaker mushrooms are. He's pulling these mushrooms out, and if you also notice, it's not a straight pull. It's more of a twisting motion, and the twisting motion actually saves the soil. So it saves the soil for the next set of mushrooms to grow up. So right now it seems a little bit of a slower process because it's thinning. Once he's done thinning, the next day comes by, left, double in size, and he'll be able to go boom, 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 boom very quickly. And as you can see, multiple sizes in the boxes at all times.
Tony, we're just losing your connection a little bit, so I just want to warn you, if you need to move back out of the main room a little bit, you might have to. And we may have lost him altogether. So we're just experiencing some technical difficulties, but we'll get Tony back as soon as possible. In the meantime, my challenge for everyone is to tell us what your favorite mushroom is in the chat.
Are we back?
Yes, you are. You're back.
Okay.
So you're sharing how they do a twisting motion, and then they do a thinning process. And then we are
so right
restabilizing.
This is a different harvester. Yeah. This is a different harvester right in the beginning. So hopefully this is a little bit better of connection. But we're in the process of thinning out the mushrooms, which means because mushrooms grow to allow the larger mushrooms to survive and thrive and become the larger mushrooms, the harvesters themselves have to identify which mushrooms are the weaker quote-unquote mushrooms to thin out and pull. It is not quite a pull motion. It's more of a twisting and upward motion. This allows the soil to be saved for the actual mushrooms to become larger. You have to be quite delicate with this process. Obviously, the harder you go, the more damaging you are to your next crop. And it might seem slow now, but what everyone is doing is prepping for tomorrow's crop when the mushrooms do double up in size, and you can go fast. It's bang, bam, 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 bam. These mushrooms get put into these boxes, and they go right to your cooler. I keep just calling these mushrooms, but actually I want to show you guys a zoomed up look at the soil. So this itself would be a mushroom. These smaller, that one and that one, we call those pins. So they're not quite mushrooms yet. It takes about 2 to 3 days for them to become a large size mushrooms. When we see small pins like that, there's a couple of things we can do. We can either turn off the oxygen, and like I said before, mushrooms use oxygen to grow and get bigger. By turning off the oxygen, the bigger ones, the ones that you see right here versus the small one here, will actually grow bigger in size. And the small ones, they don't die. They tend to just go into hibernation. And what that does is it allows two sizes of mushrooms to grow at the same time, and it allows the fitting process to be a little bit easier. That's why when you scan the beds, you'll see some largers and some smaller mushrooms. And that's what the grower trying to help out the harvester a little bit there by adjusting how the rooms are going to make sure that the harvesters actually have rooms to get their fingers inside, pull and twist out a mushroom, or else we'll just end up with a bed thick full of white mushrooms everywhere.
Tony, we just lost your camera, but as we're jumping in there, I have a question from Lisa who's asking, do you ever change the soil or add compost? So you're talking about soil conservation. How important is the soil? And how do you make sure it's fresh and needed for the mushrooms?
So the soil is 100% very important. The compost is 100% very important. They're the foundation of how mushrooms are grown. Every 7 weeks, the soil and the compost is replaced in each of these beds. So we pull out the compost, we pull out the soil, and that gets mixed into with other, I believe, other like waste stem products and everything like that. And using that soil, we actually sell it to landscapers. We sell it to other companies that might use that. A lot of the compost that you see in gardens are actually from mushroom compost itself. If we're talking about like soil conservation, a really interesting fact is our compost is made with chicken manure. That chicken manure comes from chicken farms. There's actually no other good way to get rid of chicken manure because it's such high nitrogen that it'll burn everything. Mushrooms love it. So what mushrooms will do is take that energy, pull that nitrogen content out of the compost a little, and it allows that compost to be used to grow flowers, to grow other plants. In extreme cases, it might actually take up to a year before the compost is actually ready to be used. In that scenario, the companies that buy the compost from us will actually hang on to it, mix it with sand, mix it with other soils, and then reintroduce that back into the market. So yeah, a lot of the Home Depots, a lot of the Ronas, if you buy compost, it is all mushroom compost.
That is amazing. It's very much a circular farm that you have going on, Tony, where you're reusing and then sending it on for other purposes to be used elsewhere. I love it.
We're all interconnected here. That's just the really neat thing.
It is very neat. And we have another question coming in from Holly. Are there people, or do you water them by hand? Are there misters? So is there misters that spray the water, or do you have to go manually water it?
So a little bit of both. We do have this special machine. It's called the watering tree, and it hangs onto these specialized rails that we have up here. I don't know if you guys can see that. It hangs onto the rails, and the guy will pull it along, and it will water 4 beds at a time. That gives us the general water. The other thing we have to do is we have to water by hand any areas that might need it. So as much as we want our compost and our mushrooms to grow evenly and perfectly, there are some times we're like, wow, that's a really dry spot there. I need to hand water that to make it grow as well as I can. And that's when a waterman would jump in and with a hose and he waters. So it takes him about 1.5 hours to check the whole room here. So I don't know if you guys can see the size of it all, but we have 7 of these metal beds, and it goes all the way up to the 2nd floor. I'll actually see if I can walk up to the 2nd floor to give you guys an idea of how large this facility is. And this is one of 4 barns. So we're actually upstairs now on the 2nd floor. The other thing is to control the air temperature and control the temperature inside the rooms. We have these giant vents that connect outside to coolers and heaters, and they pull in fresh air, and we either heat up the air or we cool down the air, depending on what we are trying to do. The cooler the environment, the slower the mushrooms grow, but they grow bigger. The hotter the environment, the faster the mushroom grows, but they grow slow. They grow lighter. I just have to watch the stairs as I walk down.
As you're walking, I have a question coming from Madame Boker's kindergarten grade 1 split class. Raven wonders if mushrooms have harvest seasons, or do you just pick them only a summer or spring or periodically throughout the year?
So the great thing about mushrooms is it is a 365 crop. So we pick them throughout the whole year. And they normally, like in the wild, mushrooms will grow with the seasons. But what we're doing inside of each of these rooms is replicating all 4 seasons over and over and over and over again to kind of tell the mushrooms like, oh, it's time to ripen. It's time to become mushrooms. What you see here is the mycelium. And that's what you usually see in caves. You see in trees that are growing along the bark or the ground itself. When it's time to ripen, they'll turn into mushrooms. So what we're doing is just replicating that cycle over and over 3 times to get these mushrooms to pop up each time after they're harvested.
Okay. That's a great question. And then we have one more. Why did you become a mushroom farmer? And this is from Adam in grade 1.
So initially, I don't know, do you guys all want to do what your parents do? I actually never did. I told my parents that I'm never coming back here. But you know, when you grow up and you see what a wonderful thing that your parents, your uncles, the people before you have done, you kind of want to be a part of that and kind of extend that legacy that they kind of left for you. And that's just where all this came from, right? I came back, I said, you know what, this is something really cool that they've made. It'd be a shame for me just to turn my back to it. So that's why it took me 20 odd years to come back here.
Well, if anybody's not related to a mushroom farmer, I'm sure you can connect one and they'll bring you under your wing to teach you how to mushroom farm.
Yes. No, we're always looking for new talent and new blood inside the mushroom industry. A lot of people think it's boring, but I can assure you there's a lot of science, there's a lot of machinery, there's a lot of different new ideas that come along into the business. I
was going to say, Tony, let's wrap up with the grading room, and then we'll do maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then finish off with everybody across Canada.
Sure. It's easier if I switch to the back camera as I walk. So yeah, you can see how large these facilities are. We have a box making machine that makes all these boxes for us, so we're not waiting for suppliers to send us boxes. So all the mushrooms, as soon as they're picked, as soon as the cart is full, gets pulled into our grading room, which is over here. The plastic drapery helps keep this grading room a couple degrees colder than in the hallway, because the air conditioning is always running in here. Within the grading room, we have these people that we call scalers or graders, and he is grading his mushrooms for right now. So these guys, they have a scale in front of them. They know how much each box should weigh. And he's also looking for sizing. He's looking for quality. And he's looking for so sizing, quality, and weight. And what I find amazing is most of these guys, they can tell when they pick up a box roughly how much it weighs. Because I've watched some security camera footage where I'm like, you didn't look at the scale for 1 second. And he's able to well, I think it's all right, and I've scaled it all up, and he's never been wrong. So this is a cooler room. Those are our AC units up there. It runs this room about, I think, 6 degrees. And inside over here is our cooler with these giant fans. So these giant fans run inside here about 3 degrees to keep the mushrooms cold. So as soon as they're done scaling, they'll bring them into here, palletize everything, make sure that all the pallets are labeled for our warehouse to ship out. And like I said, 365 all the time.
It's an amazing job that everyone's doing. And we have a couple more questions as we're finishing up with you, Tony. And this is coming in from Heb. How many mushrooms does your farm harvest a year? So that might be hard.
Okay. I actually have, so for our facilities, I'm talking about our agency itself, we probably do just under 1 million pounds a week.
That is amazing. So I challenge everybody to do the math of 1,000,000 pounds a week with 52 weeks in a year. So, and then we have one more question coming in. What's your favorite mushroom to eat, and do you have a favorite way to prepare them? So this will be our last question with you, Tony.
I actually love brown mushrooms. I like to slice them up and like fry them up with some butter and eat them with steak. That's probably my favorite way to eat mushrooms.
That's a great way to ask our questions with Tony. So, Tony, is there any final words you'd like to share with everyone as we're wrapping up with you today?
Just like thank you for having me. It's been my honor to actually kind of walk around, talk with everybody here. I'm just really proud to see that young Canadians are interested in agriculture and mushroom farming in general.
Yes, and we thank you, and we thank everyone for joining us today. I hope all of you learned something new today. I know I did. I learned many new facts. I was very shocked and enjoyed every moment with you, Tony. And before we close off this episode, and thank you everyone for waiting patiently, I just excited to share the mystery word is unfortunately not mushroom, but it is pumpkin, or citrouille en français. So thank you again for Tony for joining us on this episode of the Great Canadian Farm Tour. And our next stop will be tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and we're visiting a deer farm in Saskatchewan. So we look forward to seeing you all then. Goodbye for now. Thank you, Tony, and à bientôt à tous.
Bye.